Evcol. Stones Around My Neck by Emma Dawson.
My daughter Edie just isn't normal. Don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'm single now. I don't get around much, but it didn't used to be like that. She'd chase them off. My first husband, her dad, was a lovely bloke, Terry, but he lost his nut because she wouldn't stop clinging to me all the time. She was the neediest 3-year-old you ever saw. I couldn't go to the loo in peace. Her older sister wasn't like that, though the less said on the subject of Emmy, the better. Terry felt that I neglected him for the kids. Edie used to scream if I wouldn't give her attention. He said I should ignore her. It was hard. I tried to make it work, but he dumped me. I'm not sure he was ready to be a dad. You want to have fun in your 30s, don't you? But still, it hurt. And he was so angry at me that he didn't want to pay child support. The last place I wanted to go was court, but didn't have a choice. He said afterwards that he'd never forgive me for that, and that they weren't his kids. But I only went with him, and that's the truth. 8 years later, I met Doug, and it was love at first sight. He was a bit classy. He'd get £10 bottles of wine for our dates, and he was teaching me how to tango. We got married in a ceremony with the colour scheme baby blue and lavender. Oh, Edie did nearly ruin it by refusing to come. I was gobsmacked that she could be so mean. But eventually Doug said, "Let's leave that little cow to stew," and I realised it was the wedding I should be happy about, whether she came or not. We had the most fabulous honeymoon in Paris. We danced by the Seine and kissed under the Eiffel Tower. Oh, but when we got home, Doug went into the bedroom. I heard him cry out, and there was a horrible thud. Edie had burst all of his tennis balls and chucked them on the floor and our bed, and Doug had tripped over them. He loved playing tennis. She didn't seem to understand how nasty it was. And she didn't stop there either. It was constant, relentless spitefulness. Once she threw away Doug's favourite razor. It was the only one that gave him a good shave, so he smashed her precious frog figurines, and she took my curling tongs and burnt a mark on all his clothes in embarrassing places. We realised when we were out Christmas shopping, and I saw that there was a mark in a rather unfortunate part of the body, so I said, "Doug, I think you need to take a peek at your bottom." Well, I had no idea then that she'd done it. He went ballistic when we got home and realised how far she'd gone, and quite rightly. OK, so he hit her. But he was very much provoked. Meanwhile, I was so distracted by Edie's antics that I didn't notice what was going on with Emmy. You see, Emmy had started drinking. First, she did it out of the house, saying she was staying with friends. Then I started finding bottles hidden around her room, like under her bed. It turned out that she used to climb out the window when I thought she was asleep. Edie told me that later. And there was nothing I could say to her that would stop her from behaving like that. She'd just snort. Oh, and the things that she wore. Skirts and shorts that hardly covered her, showing her midriff, dyeing her hair. And then she stopped talking to anyone, even though she shared a room with Edie. They used to be so close. I was terrified that the neighbours would realise what was going on. And Doug thought I was a terrible mum. He said the whole situation made him ashamed of us. Emmy ran away when she was 17, leaving a note saying, "Don't try and find me." I cried. for about 2 weeks. And then me and Doug sat down and had a talk about what we should do, and we decided that the only thing to do was to give her time. After all, it wasn't like she was willing to listen. She still hasn't come back. It's been 14 years, so she's 32. I know, I try not to think about it. Because I get so angry sometimes, I want to kill her. What kind of child does that to a mum? I gave birth to 2 stones round my neck. It wasn't that long after that Doug started trying to convince me to kick Edie out. She was 19. She wasn't ready to be out there. Now, Edie only had herself to blame about this because she had been harassing Doug since he moved in, and I understand why he didn't want to live with her. He was quite right, but all the same, I couldn't say yes. She wouldn't have coped. But it was also because of Emmy. Edie leaving would be like half losing another daughter. So I told Doug that Edie was staying. I made Edie promise him that she would behave in future. I had to bribe her with a lot of chocolate buttons. I thought he'd get over it. But he wasn't the kind of guy who just gave up. He kept trying to talk Edie round, telling her about the good old life she'd have if she were free from me, which I found quite offensive, actually. I know that everybody wants to see a mum and daughter at loggerheads, but Edie and I loved each other, and there was nothing wrong with that. Eventually, he told me he was leaving if I didn't kick her out. It was terrible, because I knew that it wasn't his fault, it was hers. Yet I just couldn't. He didn't give up, though. Well, he still loved me. For years after he went, he'd call up every so often and say things like, "Darling, ditch that monster and come and live with me in London. We'll dance by the Thames every night." He was such a romantic. But I told him that I couldn't leave Edie. She looked so pleased with herself the day that he moved out. I told her to get out of my sight. She'd got exactly what she wanted. That's what I told her. I said, "I hope you're thrilled that you've destroyed my happiness." I don't think she cared. I didn't get another bloke after that. It wasn't the right age anymore. And it got scary going outside. Everyone was so unpleasant. I started stopping in. Meanwhile, Edie, pleased as punch, used to put on Faulty Towers and Ab Fab and the Vicar of Dibley every evening, and we'd talk about her strange colleagues or what Mrs. Cushing's at Flat 10 had been up to now. I worry about Edie more now that she's the only person left. My whole family now. She's 29. And she hasn't smelt the coffee yet. Yesterday she came in and announced that she was going to her first office leaving drinks tomorrow. She's got a crush on a boy called Vassy. Vassy? I couldn't believe my ears. I reminded her that drinking was how Emmy started. I just mentioned that she doesn't always make the best decisions in life. But so far, she's been brushing me off. Wouldn't listen, just like her sister. Well, I'm going to put a stop to this drinks business, or my name's not Patty. I wish that I could explain to her that going to these things is for other people. All I ever wanted was to keep her safe.
This was an Evcol Entertainment Clockwork Digital Studios original production, a part of the On Another Wavelength audio anthology series. featuring the voice talent of Maggie Turner. Written by Emma Dawson. Directed and produced by Simon James Collier. Series created and co-produced by Adam Dechanel. Soundscape design by Zachary Elliott-Hatton.